Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Bridge to India's webinar on residential rooftop solar ready to take off. This is the latest one in our series on distributed solar power in India. This is Sangeeta Suresh from Bridge to India. Thank you all for joining us today. I would like to introduce you to the panelists for the day. As always, we have a diverse and an extremely knowledgeable panel today that represents the key stakeholders in the residential rooftop solar market. Sharing their views as developers and EPC contractors today are Mr. Ravinder Singh, the Chief of Solar Rooftop Business at TATA Power, and Mr. Shravan Sampath, CEO of Oakridge Energy. Here to talk about the all-important issue of financing for rooftop systems are Mr. KP Baiju, DGM at State Bank of India, and Mr. Suyog Malviya, National BD Lead at Bajaj Finserv. Finally, we also have Mr. Madhulal from Kerala State Electricity Board to talk to us about how they're implementing this rooftop solar program as a DISCOM. Thank you all for being a part of this webinar. I would like to mention a special word of thanks to our sponsors, TATA Power Solar, and our strategic partners, the Indo-German Energy Forum, for supporting our webinar initiatives and helping us bring quality content to our participants. Now, I'm moving on to the agenda for the day.
Sangeeta, we've also got Harsha from Enphase.
Thank you. We also have Mr. Harsha, sorry for missing that out. We also have Mr. Harsha Venkatesh, Director of Enphase Energy, a micro inverter company. I'm now moving on to our agenda for the day. We will begin with an introduction to the residential rooftop solar market by Mr. Vinay Rustagi, Manager, Bridge to India. And this will be followed by a brief address by each of our panelists. We will have a panel discussion, which will then be followed by a Q&A. Participants are requested to send your questions at any time of the day through the text box located at the bottom right corner of your webinar panel. We will also conduct an audience poll during the webinar, and a few feedback questions will also be shared with you at the end of this webinar. We request you to please provide your responses as well. So this will help us curate future webinar content. Right now, I will now hand the session over to Vinay, who will bring the residential rooftop, who will give us a brief introduction on the residential rooftop solar market. Over to you, Vinay.
Thank you, Sangeeta. If you can please share the slides.
Vinay, are the slides not visible to you?
No, I can't see the slides.
Just hold on, Vinay. Would you like to share it from your screen, Vinay, because it is sharing on mine?
No, I haven't got it open with me.
Okay, let me just.
Apologies all, just give us a minute, please. I think maybe I can just start in any case while Sangeeta is sharing the slides. I just wanted to quickly present an overview of the rooftop solar market. Just a very high level picture to set the context for the discussion. And then I'll come to each of the panelists. Our estimate is that rooftop solar, the residential rooftop solar segment accounts for about 800 megawatts of total installed capacity, which is just little less than 14% of the total rooftop solar capacity in the country. Now that is actually a very, very small number, particularly if you compare it with many of the developed countries like US, Germany, Australia, etc. And just to give you an idea, for comparison, in Australia, the residential market accounts for almost 7,000 megawatts of installed capacity, which is more than 50% of the total rooftop solar capacity in India, in the country. Now that, of course, given the difference in the sizes of the two countries, that's a pretty phenomenal number, and that kind of points out to the potential of the residential rooftop solar market And we ourselves have been very, very passionate about the potential and the benefits of this market. But there are various reasons why it's not taken off as expected. Now, in terms of the drivers and challenges, many people have been basically talking about the fact that it's been the rooftop solar product is very expensive. A typical 2 to 3 kilowatt system, it used to cost about 2 to 3 lakh rupees until a few years ago. But today, the cost of a 2 kilowatt system is is about 80,000 rupees, and after subsidies, it is about I would say 60% of that. So it is about 50 to 55,000 rupees. So it's definitely much more affordable, and I do believe that the challenge associated with the cost, the affordability, and the financing part is definitely come down in our view. The second challenge, which has always been kind of flagged off in this market, is consumer awareness. And I do believe that that is still a concern because Indian consumers, particularly those in the smaller cities, etc., are not, their level of awareness is not very high. They don't know how to make the best decision in terms of technology and the product system. And they need help either from the government or from other independent sources on the financing model, on the business model, etc. What are the kind of warranties and the product reliability structures which are available to them? Other incentives, if I talk about, the good thing is that the free net metering. So now we have the slides. Yes, Sangeeta, if you can just go back to the previous one. You can go back to the previous slide, Sangeeta. Yes, this one. So if we just look at the pluses and the minuses, not this one, the next one. Yes. There are, MNRE is now offering 20 to 40% capital subsidies for residential rooftop systems. In addition, there are many states which are offering top-up subsidies or even additional benefits like the generation-based incentive, for example, in Delhi and Haryana. And then finally, even though net metering is being withdrawn from the C&I segment in most parts of the country, it is still available, and I do believe that there is no proposal to remove the free net metering benefit, at least from the residential consumers. So I think that is a big draw and should be a big attraction for the consumers. On the challenges side, it is a fact that the residential tariffs in India are subsidized to some extent. But if you look at the urban consumers, most of them, particularly when you look at their top tier tariff that they're paying, it is typically about 6 to 7 rupees. So I do believe that from a viability point of view, residential systems are beginning to become more attractive now. The bigger challenge in our view is that most consumers in India don't have the long-term visibility in terms of either stability of the place where they're going to be living at, or the visibility over whether they can commit the rooftop space that they have available to them. The reason is now many of us are highly mobile. The urban affluent consumer is highly mobile. We often live in either rented accommodation or we want to expand vertically upwards, because of which many people are unable or unwilling to commit the rooftop space. And then many of us just simply live in flats. Increasingly, in most of the new real estate which is being built out is actually mostly in the form of high-rise condos, and the kind of space that consumers need for installing these systems is simply not available. So that, I believe, is a genuine and one of the major barriers to this market. Financing, I do believe it's kind of beginning to improve. We have State Bank of India and Bajaj Finance here. We'll hear more from them. And we talked about the consumer part. So in terms of the government policy, the government identified a target of 4 gigawatt residential rooftop installation by 2022. And the way it was done, it is basically envisaging a 20 to 40% MNRE subsidy. On top of that, MNRE is providing some financial incentives to DISCOMs based on compliance with their annual targets and achieving or exceeding the numbers that they did in the previous years. Like I mentioned, some states are offering some additional incentives on top of that, like Bihar, which offers a 20% subsidy. So if you want a 2 kilowatt system in Bihar, 60% of the cost is actually borne by MNRE plus the local government, and you only have to put or finance 40% of the total system cost. There's free net metering available. And then, we have this mandatory installation policy in many states, including Punjab, Haryana, Andhra Pradesh, Chandigarh, and Maharashtra. And typically, the policy says that above a certain size, all buildings or new buildings should have a mandatory rooftop solar installation. Again, there are some size specifications in different states. So, for example, Chandigarh policy says that every building, every residential, commercial, or industrial building more than 500 square yards in size needs to have a system of at least meeting X percentage of the consumer's power demand or X kilowatt over there. And then on top of that, there are some more states which are offering ancillary additional benefits. For example, Punjab offers a rebate in property tax. I do believe that there are some states which offer relaxation in building bylaws. So, for example, if you can only construct 4 stories in your house in Delhi, then you are still allowed on top of the 4 stories to construct an elevated structure for the rooftop solar system. So there are these kind of ancillary benefits available in some states. Now, we have been at Bristol India very, very passionate about this market. We've been doing lots of work over the years. We have done various studies to assess what is the market potential assessment, what are the key areas of the country where the demand is coming from, what kind of policy framework is needed to enable the growth of this market, and also advising private companies and other stakeholders on a range of business strategy, financing, and research pieces. So now let me come to our panel and discussion. The key areas we identified for the discussion are number one, where is the consumer? And I think this is something which is kind of evolving all the time. The questions really are, is the consumer the urban affluent consumer living in large houses, or there is a market in tier 2 and tier 3 cities for like 1 kilowatt, 2 kilowatt, and other kind of smaller systems? Is it on-grid versus off-grid? Is it storage versus non-storage, etc.? What is the total market potential? So today we estimate the market potential, the growth at only about 200 megawatts per annum until now. But MNRE has sanctioned funding for about 800 megawatts. States have issued empanelment tenders for 1.3 gigawatts, and many of these tenders have already announced the results. So there is every reason to believe that the market can actually grow to 500, 700, or even 1,000 megawatts from next year onwards. Financing, is it still a barrier? Can it be an enabler? What are the ideal financing needs of the consumers? The government policy and tender schemes, and here we'll kind of wait to hear from Madhulal J. Kerala has been like a shining example of how a government can come up and a DISCOM can come up with an attractive policy for all the stakeholders. And then, of course, the technology part. What role has technology got to play? What are the product configurations, storage, non-storage, smart inverters, etc., that can grow in this market? So I will now come to each of the panelists, and what I will request is that if you can just very quickly introduce yourself in 1 or 2 minutes in terms of what is your business presence in the residential rooftop market, and what's been your experience and learnings over the last few years. And then I will pose some additional questions to you that you can kind of focus on. So I will start with you, Ravinder, because you are a veteran in this market. TATA Power is, I believe, the biggest player in the residential rooftop solar market. So let me start with you and ask you, you are present all over India, you have a big distributor network. What is your sense of the market, and what are you kind of hearing from the ground from your distributor network? And answering those questions about the consumer, where is the consumer? What is the typical profile of the consumer? And is it in cities, big cities, smaller cities, or even villages and the other rural areas? and what is the typical system size? So if you can just help us with those points, it'll be a great start to the webinar.
Okay, thank you, Vinay. Well, my name is Ravinder. I look after the rooftop business of Tata Power. Tata Power is very gung-ho about the rooftop business, particularly in the residential space. I think we've done a lot of work over the last 2-3 years building up awareness. So we had a Focus City launch, which unfortunately starting end February, we have not done it, but so far we had covered around 94 cities. Our plan was to go to 1,000 cities and towns across India. Okay, because we also realize that awareness is one of the key barriers to adoption of rooftop solar in India. What we are seeing in the market, okay, I will not talk in terms of installed capacity of residential, what Tata Power has or not. But all I can say is that at this point of time, today also, despite the COVID constraints, we are doing transactions every month, which are in multiples of hundreds. Okay, our goal and aspiration is to do transactions every month, which are in thousands. Okay, and that's our view about the market, and we are going about it in a very systematic and a strategic manner. So that's all I will say at the moment. What to answer your question specifically, Vinay, most of the demand which we see actually is surprise in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Okay, it is in cities like Ahmedabad, it is in cities like Nagpur, it is in cities like Akola, it is in cities like Chandigarh, it is in cities like rather than the metros. Partly because it is driven by the fact that in metros, most of the buildings tend to be flats. And there also we find a lot of traction there with most of the societies adopting solar. So it's not as if the demand is not there, it's just that the demand is of a different type. Cooperative housing societies are more like B2B customers, okay, whereas in B2C, in towns like Akola, Nagpur, towns like Kochi and others, it's the individual end users, and partly it's because of the fact that people in smaller towns tend to stay in individual houses. Over the last 6 months, 8 months, in fact, we've seen this huge interest from residential rooftop customers. The number of hits on our website for people interested in rooftop solar is around 10 to 15 times more than what it was in the pre-COVID era. We suspect it is because people are now staying at home, people are working at home, and all of us would have noticed that with the children and the wife and the husband also working out of home, the average electricity bill in an urban middle class household, particularly in summers at least, now with winters that the bills would probably come down, was in excess of 10,000, isn't it? And that's where the interest is there. What we still find is that that interest is not translating into orders, and partly I think that interest is not translating into orders is partly because of the fact that people are reluctant to let strangers come to their house to do a site survey, and I think industry has to do more in terms of trying to see whether we can do design and installation without doing a site survey. Okay, the second thing which we also feel is a barrier, which basically takes people, is the lack of easy and convenience financing options. Both our colleagues from Bajaj Finserv and Mr. Baiju are there. But the challenge which is there is that SBI has very attractive interest rates, they have very attractive tenors, but then they're not fast. Okay. The fact is the convenience is a very important factor. When a guy is interested, when a guy is hitting your website, if you can offer him a financing option which says that you can disburse the loan or sanction the loan within the 24 hours and possibly in the next 72 hours you can do it, and it is for a tenor where I think for most of the urban middle class people, paying 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 per month is no big deal. Okay, and if that can happen, then it's a very, very good thing. So at one end of the spectrum you have entities like SBI which have very attractive tenors, which have very attractive interest rates, but then the approval process takes a long time. Okay. Then at the other end, you have people like Bajaj Finserv and others, and who we've been engaged with. And so, pardon my saying so, but where it's almost instantaneous, but then the interest rates are, what do I say, not very attractive as compared to SBI. So I think for the rooftop solar to take place, there are three things which are required. One is awareness. Tata Power is doing its bit to build up the awareness. The second is there is also standardization which is required. You rightly pointed out, Vinay, that people do not want to give up their rooftop space. So almost everybody wants rooftop elevated structures. Okay, so you need to have standardized structures also. You cannot have structures where the installer is actually welding at site. That's something which no rooftop customer, or particularly residential rooftop customer, would be comfortable with. Okay, so that's the second element. So I think the industry has to do a bit more on standardization. You also spoke about the fact that most of the people in tier 1 cities stay in flats. Okay, so the industry also has to find solutions for solar balconies. Okay, and so that's something which the industry has to do. But the most important thing is the convenience factor. If there is easy finance available, there is instantaneous finance available, I think this industry can grow multifold. And currently what is happening is, what we are actually seeing is that there is very little innovation which is happening on the financing front. And I think that innovation is required, and sooner or later somebody would come out with a business model which could basically change the rules of the game. And I think that's what the need of the hour is. So those are my views, Vinay.
Okay. Thank you, Ravinder. Very, very insightful as always, and I think some interesting topics and areas for us to reflect on in the discussion forward. Shravan, I'll just come straight to you, particularly because Ravinder mentioned this point about innovative financing, etc., and you do offer financing products of your own. So if you can, start with your company profile and pick on that. Also, I wanted to kind of also want you to expand on how do you reach the customer typically? Ravinder mentioned that the consumer is in tier 2 and tier 3 cities and so on. What is the typical sales and the conversion process? How long does it take? What are the key kinds of consumer concerns? And what does it take to convert a customer from an inquiry to an order, which Ravinder says is still kind of not happening?
Okay. Hi, everyone. So my name is Shravan. I'm part of a company called Oakridge Energy, which we set up, and we've been in the residential business for about 5 years now. So we basically operate out of Delhi, and we have operations in about 6 northern states. So we operate in Himachal, Punjab, Haryana, UP, Delhi, Rajasthan. And primarily our business is in tier 1 and a little bit in tier 2 cities. So we operate majorly in capital cities and nearby, the clusters which are near the capitals. So what we did was, around last year, in fact, early last year, we started offering financing for solar rooftop, because as Ravinder Ji rightly identified, financing is a bottleneck. So we realized that not only is financing a bottleneck, but also integrating financing gives an element of trust to the customer. That so we as a developer started offering financing, because we realized that once we integrate financing and offer it to the customer gets comfort and confidence that the product actually works. So it builds not only the ease of financing in, but it also builds trust on the product itself, that this actually works. So what we started doing was, we raised the money, and we started offering a 3-year structure, where we take an advance upfront, and then the remaining payment we take over 36 monthly installments. Of course, we structured it more as a lease finance kind of model. And I think it's been a good experience so far. Of course, post-COVID, we have stopped offering it, and we plan to review the situation after December. But it's been a good experience so far, in the sense that the customers are not only very eager to get on the product and get an installation done, but also we ourselves as a company, we bundle that in with cleaning, maintenance, insurance, real-time monitoring, all of these additional elements which come at a certain cost. But then what happens is, the customer is willing to pay that cost, because now he's confident that the system actually works. And this was all part of our early experience that customers feel very uncomfortable about rooftop solar, particularly residential, because there was a very bad vibe attached to it. A lot of early installations did not work for various reasons. Some net metering did not happen. Some places subsidy did not come. Some places actually the performance was not there because panels were not getting cleaned on time and so on and so forth. So this was something that we addressed. We said that let's offer a managed solution where we not only give financing and installation, but we also make solar work. So that was our pitch, is that we make solar work. We don't just work in solar, but we make solar work. And that was something which really clicked, and it is something which remains, to my mind, a very interesting product offering. So in my view, if financing has to come in, financing has, in this particular space, it's very different from financing a scooter or a motorcycle or a car, because those are proven products with track records. Like a car is what, 100-year-old product, right? So I think what should happen is that the developer or the installer, in our case, should deeply integrate with the financier, and both should go jointly to the market. And that is really when there is value for the customer. And in my view, when there's value for the customer, the financing will grow. Like, for example, now there are other financing products available, but the offtake is there for all to see for various reasons. So I think with that coupling takes place.
Sorry, Shravan. Shravan, if I just kind of quickly bring you to this issue of how do you convert a customer, what is the process of reaching the customer and converting him to an order?
Sure. So we have online, typically, so our experience in the rooftop space has been that, of course, education is a challenge, but we generally steer clear of the education part. So we are more, so in our experience, the customer life cycle is that first he wants to know about the product, he wants to see the benefits of the product, and then he wants to take a choice on the vendor. So we try to come in as a installer at the third stage. Now, stage 1 and stage 2 is more for the customer to get educated online, etc., etc. Or there are various community awareness programs which are available for that, and we partner with those as well. But our primary focus is, as a sales agency, we try to find customers who are already ripe, who have taken the purchase decision to go solar. At that point, we would reach out to them, and how we reach out to them is typically through online channels, because these days everybody is on Facebook and Google and all of that. So we get hits on our website and we get leads, which we then, so in our experience, you cannot sell solar rooftop to a customer. You can sell Oakridge to a customer who is already sold on solar rooftop, but you cannot sell solar rooftop to a customer. So that's what we try to do. We try to reach customers who are already sold on rooftop solar, and we try to convince them that we are the best brand for them and we have the best components for them and all of that. So that is typically our sales process. And in our experience in the sales cycle, the most important thing for a customer who is on the fence is only payback. Payback period, return on investment. If you can prove to the customer that his investment is getting returned in 3 years or 2 years or 4 years, 2 years sometimes with 40% subsidy, but otherwise it's somewhere between 3 and 4 years. If that comfort is there, and if a customer buys into that story, then the sale is through. Because we have seen that in terms of, say, 100 customers, we would see 2 or 3 people who would say, I want to do this anyway because I want to do it for my children and the environment and all that. But the major thrust we see are customers who want to save on their electricity bills. And that's where we see, say, 95% or 97% of our customers. And that's basically where our sales is also prioritized, is that we always talk numbers to them. We try to simplify the offering, put it in numbers, say per kilowatt, how much are you going to save every month? And that's typically how the sale is done.
Thanks, Shravan. Very interesting insights. I'm just going to switch to Madhulal J. Kerala has been, like as mentioned, like a standout example of how a state should be implementing residential rooftop policy. Kerala has come out with a very innovative scheme. So, Madhulal Ji, why don't you explain what is the scheme, and more importantly, what's been the driver for the DISCOM to come out with a scheme like this? Because across the country, most of the DISCOMs are still, unfortunately, not in favor of rooftop solar, because they see rooftop solar as like some kind of a competition or a competing product. So if you can explain why KSEB has come out with an innovative policy, what are the key features, and how did you go about identifying and doing some initial studies in terms of registering the customers before you actually issued a tender? Madhulal Ji, over to you.
Hey, good afternoon, Vinay Ji. Good afternoon, everybody. In case in Kerala, now Kerala is giving very prime importance for the renewable energy. As everybody knows, it's a green energy. It's non-conventional method. And moreover, I think the future is for solar in India. So, being a utility, naturally, we have to concentrate on this solar generation. That is why Kerala government and Kerala State Electricity Board, we are giving much importance to this non-conventional source of energy, and particularly this solar energy. In solar energy generation, we have some constraint in Kerala compared to other states, because this ground-mounted solar plants, we have certain limitations. Because as everybody knows, this bare land is not easily available in Kerala. It's a fertile land in Kerala. In the most of the months, we are getting rain. So our land is fertile, and we are getting sufficient rain. So the land is mostly suitable for cultivation. So that's our one limitation for the ground-mounted solar plants. And another thing, the land is also very costly in Kerala. So that was our constraint in enhancing our solar energy capacity. In one side, that constraint is there. In the another side, there is one opportunities, because there are a lot of rooftops in Kerala getting sufficient sunlight. So we decided to exploit that possibility for enhancing our the solar generation capacity. We concentrated on rooftop solar generation. That's one reason. In Kerala now, our target is to achieve 500 megawatt from a rooftop plant. 2022, our aim is to reach 1000 megawatt from solar, and 500 out of the 1000 is from rooftop plant. And Kerala government also declared a program called Saura, Urja Kerala Mission. Under Urja Kerala Mission, government of Kerala has declared a program Saura to promote the generation of this rooftop solar plants.
So Madhulal Ji, just talk to us briefly about the innovative scheme that you have launched.
So first we have invited these consumers to register in our program, and the response was very good. 278,000 domestic consumers, not domestic, all consumers, they have registered in the program, and we have conducted a preliminary inspection, and we have shortlisted 42,000 consumers for the first phase, and that work is now in progress. And in Kerala, okay, in Kerala, around 70% of the electricity now we are importing. Only 30% only we are generating, and now we cannot meet our demand, because Kerala being very environmental friendly state, and people are also more they're aware about this ecosystem. So we cannot now start any new hydel project in Kerala. The same is with the thermal plants also. So the main option is the solar. That's why we are concentrating on the solar program.
So, I think the unique part about Kerala is that it is the DISCOM which is actually financing the rooftop solar systems, and the households only have to bear a small cost, and then they get some free share of the power, and the rest of the power goes to the DISCOMs, which I think is a model which we have found that most installers, contractors, and even financiers, they absolutely love that process. And I think everybody, whoever we speak to, they always give the example of Kerala and they say that they want to go to Kerala because that is where they see a very attractive market. Right? So that's very interesting, Madhulal Ji. I think well done, and I do believe that the Kerala market will grow very rapidly. Uh, Let me come to Baiju Ji and Suyog. I think both of you heard how Ravinder as well as Shravan, they have talked about financing being so critical. What is the consumer perspective and what kind of products the consumer is looking at? So if you can just talk about what is the financing solutions that you're offering in rooftop solar right now, and given this kind of feedback, how do you think you can kind of grow your presence and your scale in this market? Baiju Ji, let's start with you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Vinay. Good afternoon, all the panelists here. So I think Ravinder and Shravan both have raised valid points. Ravinder was specifically mentioned the case of SBI and their experience and the experience of SBI. Let me give a brief historical perspective to it, in the sense that now we availed that World Bank line of credit somewhere in 2016. And that the whole World Bank line of credit was meant to fund only commercial, industrial, and institutional. Residential does not form a part of that. So if you say, like, it has been a slow starter. The initial years 2016, 17, there were virtually no takers. Like Ravinder mentioned about consumer awareness. For me, heading the World Bank line or the bank solar initiatives, so it has been quite a challenge to create awareness among our internal consumers. That is my officers, my relationship managers who work in the field. So creating awareness among them has been the biggest challenge, and we have been training them regularly. But again, solar is not a typical lending product. So getting knowledge, getting themselves updated, there is a reluctance on the part. This was there right in the beginning in 2016. But when what we did is we concentrated on a few branches. We identified a few branches. Say in the beginning, we identified around 118 branches, which we felt had the potential to do that. Still, the first year was virtually a washout but after that, the commercial area and the industrial field, both of them started doing really well. By 2018-19, we started availing that, and there has been a good response. That segment has really gained momentum. Now it is well settled, and like Ravinder also mentioned about simplification of procedure. Yeah, commercial and industrial don't require a simplification, in the sense that mostly they will be existing customers, or even if it is an SPV, they will have to go through the normal due diligence, etc. He has raised a very valid point, but when we come to residential, I think we need there is a case for simplification of procedure. Residential, we are just in the early stages. We are negotiating a line of credit with World Bank. I'm sure I will keep Ravinder's suggestion in mind, because if you know, even in the bank, the initial stages when the car loan products were there, it used to take 5 to 6 days or even a week. I remember in my early days when the car loan used to be sanctioned, it almost used to take a month. Now it's 24 hours. Because nobody waits for you. If somebody desires for a car, so he wants to get the loan immediately. So the process has improved over a period of time. Solar is a new area, and solar poses different challenges, in the sense that what happens is solar is not a standalone product in itself, in the sense that it requires after sale service, about which the infrastructure, like Ravinder was mentioning about, that the potential is there in tier 2 and tier 3 centers. But what about O&M? O&M will pose a challenge, especially for residential rooftop. who does the cleaning, whether the cleaning is done periodically so that we generate enough power. These issues are there. So residential, although it offers tremendous potential, it is taking some time, but we are also very keen because we have a huge customer base. And like Ravinder mentioned, we have even our existing commercial line is priced very attractively. The residential, I believe, if when we pitch it, we have an existing product, but when we come out with a fresh product, it will definitely be priced even more attractive, closer to what the home loan rates are. The home loan rates, if you have been watching, have been coming down. So similarly, we'll also be focusing on that and see and try to build in a simplified product so that there is a larger offtake and the pent up demand for residential takes place. Herein, we would prefer the Kerala model in the sense that because when the discom, see, if you look at the MNRE guidelines also, the focus has been on discom pushing the whole thing. If you look at the notification per se, they're keen that the discoms push this. So we'll be happy if other state discoms, so that we need not deal with multiple units. And discoms, if they come out with the tenders and then they do, then the discoms borrows the money. What happens is it helps in spreading the residential rooftop very fast. So that is one model we are keen to look at. Again, going forward, let's see how things turn out. Kerala model has just started. We hope that other discoms also take up the same.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Baiju. Just two quick questions. The products that you have right now, are you offering secured or unsecured lending? And second, when is the World Bank loan expected to be operational?
It is both secured and unsecured, depending on the track record. Suppose you have an established player, then other than the project assets, normally no, the larger ones which we are lending are mostly project assets only. The smaller ones, if you are not an established player, if your track record is not so good, we are insisting on some kind of collateral, not exactly 100% collateral, in the sense that just to secure that, we are insisting on some kind of collateral. But that also will be there for even for the resco players who are in the initial stages. Once they have a track record, we are sure that that can be relooked and we can look at unsecured kind of thing.
And what about what is
regarding regarding the residential line of credit, it is in an advanced stage. There are a couple of things which require clarification. We are sure that those hurdles will also be overcome, and we'll be in a position to take it forward very shortly.
Okay, thank you, Baiju. Suyog, so you heard, what Ravinder, Shravan, and Baiju had to say on financing. You are one of the biggest NBFCs in the country. You have got the advantage of speed and being closer to the customer. Just tell us, what is your perspective on financing rooftop solar? And are you ready? Like I mentioned, this market is expected to take off and could become a 1,000 megawatt market even in the next 1 year. How are you getting into this market?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. I am Suyog Malviya. I work for Bajaj Finserv as National Head for Business Development. So yes, I've heard Ravinder, I have heard Shravan, right? So currently what we do, right? Currently we are into financing of products where there is a customer discretion is there, right? As Baiju rightly said that solar is not a financing product currently, right? Because financers work on finance those products where velocity is involved, and they also see if scalability is there or not, right? So yes, scalability is there in solar, but not currently, right? So and we are into retail financing, right? So there are some advantages to fund solar, and there are uh, some issues in financing solars also, right? So I'll just, as a financer, it's an installed product, right? So that is a benefit for us because that rooftop solar is installed at customer's residence, right? So there is a contactability and stability where we can mitigate. Right, rightly said by everybody that there is a problem in awareness. Right, customers are not aware. Secondly, as a financer, we don't have much tie-ups, right? Apart from Tata Power, right? We don't have much of manufacturing tie-ups, right? And there is less of promotion, right? So, as I told you that if manufacturers are not promoting finance, right? Customers are not aware that financing is available on solar system. Then ticket size is also a problem, because currently, as I told you, we are into all discretionary spend product financing, right? If I see solar, right, the ticket size would range between 1 lakh to 5 lakh, and it can go up more than 5 lakh also, right? So for as a financer, ticket size is a uh, ticket size, because for us, we decision the case very fast, right? We are very fast in decisioning the case, as uh, it does not take more than 2 minutes to decision a case, anything which is between below 3 lakh rupees, right?
Well,
So
what
we
I
are
can
that
tell you
fast.
is that
But
most
yes,
rooftop solar systems today would
secondly,
be less than 3 lakh rupees.
second issue is this market is very unorganized. Hello. So another constraint what we see is this market is very unorganized, right?
Okay.
And as a financer, we at Bajaj Finserv, right, how we finance is we give this facility on point of sale, right? Here the customers are being touch based by freelancers, right, who are their distributors, manufacturer distributors, and that is the point when they pitch finance and get the customer converted. So what we want from manufacturer is that they should tell the customer about finance, right? And once they are aware, then I'm sure that we can scale up numbers of finance in solars.
Okay, thanks, Suyog. I will put that question to Ravinder and others in the discussion later on. But let me come to Harsha. Harsha, you heard the demand perspective, the financing perspective, policy issues, etc. I know that Enphase has been hugely successful in other markets around the world, and you're now kind of growing your India business. Just tell us a little bit about what you're doing in India, what's the response has been so far, and is the Indian consumer ready to kind of buy the kind of cutting edge, new age products? Is the demand for storage that you're seeing, etc.? Just tell us about your market experience.
Sure. Thank you, Vinay. So hi everyone, this is Harsha Venkatesh. I am the director for product line management here in India. So Enphase, let me provide a brief view here. So we've been in India for close to 3 years now, and mainly we have a large engineering as well as software product teams. For example, I'm running the product management team here, and we have other functions, all of them based here in India. And more than 50% of Enphase is actually based here in India, and 300 people. We also recently started a Make in India initiative, right? So we manufacture our microinverters in Chennai, Salcom, and so that's about Enphase. Very shortly about our India presence here. So more from what I have seen when Enphase started here 3 years back. For example, I relocated back from the US after spending like more than a decade or close to a decade outside of India in Europe and the US. I moved back a couple of years back, and we've seen a remarkable, there are a couple of aspects which are very interesting. So Indian consumers are, of course, nobody really are aware about quality and reliability as an aspect. We always look at the price as the first variable. That's something which we have seen. And coming to the view of what is important, really from a slightly longer term view, right? There are four aspects which are very important. One is higher performance. By performance, you produce more energy year after year. And how do you do that? That's the most important aspect. The other is reliability. Will the system last for 10 years? Will it last for 20 years, 25 years? The third one is it very safe, especially in rooftop solar, right? People are very worried about safety. So this is the third aspect. Fourth one is it smart? Can you upgrade the product? Can you make it future ready? So when we are talking about having a 100 gigawatt plus in our vision for the next couple of years, so the grid will change. It's not going to be the same. So do you have a technology which can change along with it, though you are already installed? Could you change that in future, right? Those are the things which Enphase is focusing on. See, we've shipped over 3 crore microinverters worldwide. We are the leading worldwide residential microinverter player, especially with close to 50% of market share in the US. And I truly believe that something like a microinverter, which is a very small scalable product. Every panel has a inverter, right? That's microinverter. It's very scalable, and people want to typically not invest everything. That's the Indian mentality, right? We don't want to go all out and invest like a 4 kilowatt or a 5 kilowatt system. We want to try out with a smaller system. And that's something which is very unique, and what something like a microinverter technology can offer. Another thing is what could make the residential sector a lot more interesting for someone like us, for example, is the education aspect is definitely missing, and we are more interested basically on the cost side. How do we educate people more from a quality and reliability perspective? And the second aspect is how can we bring in certain safety aspects like rapid shutdown? In other rooftop markets, for example, in the US, it's mandated in the National Electric Code. So how do we bring those changes so that we recommend safe solar here? Right? Those are a couple of aspects which come to my mind. And from a Enphase point of view, I think there is a large growth ahead. And when we are looking at, when I talked about storage, for example, in India, one of the largest markets which you see is actually your lead acid UPS battery, right? Which everyone has in our home. For example, I have it here as well. And 30 minutes back, I had a power cut. And I was wondering, will I lose the connection here? And luckily did not, because I had a UPS, right? How do we actually integrate solar and storage together? And these concepts are already coming in the US, for example. So that's something which Enphase is looking at. So you have a PV system today, and you can buy a modular storage, which you can keep adding as you use. So those becomes very interesting also to look at more on the self-consumption. How do you actually consume the energy what you're producing and control loads, for example, and do other intelligent things? So those, I think, are very important. And I think as we progress in the next 1 or 2 years, I think it'll become extremely interesting and important.
Thank you, Harsha. So let's kind of make it a little bit more interactive and go back and forth between the panel. So I want to pose the question to the panelists. I mean, what do you think is the potential for market growth for residential rooftop over the next 3 to 5 years? I'm sure many of you would have done some kind of internal market assessment exercises to determine your own kind of business plans and business strategies. I'm sure Tata Power have some studies, so have possibly Enphase and the banks, etc. So let's have a discussion on that. Ravinder, do you want to kick off that? I mean, in terms of what do you think is the market assessment? Which major states, based on where you see the market right now?
Yeah, I won't get into the numbers game, Vinay. Okay.
Okay.
I think what is required is, like I said, there are 2-3 things which are required. I think Mr. Baiju also hit upon it. Okay, for residential rooftop system to grow, you need local presence, local connect, and you need local service network, right? Uh, Almost, I would say, we should have dedicated resources, say, for a colony or a cluster of colonies within a city, rather than a single resource for the city. That is something which Tata Power is working on. Okay, that's something which we've worked on for the last two years. We continue to work on it. That is number one. And all of those people have to be trained resources. So you have to invest in training those people. Okay, and you also have to invest through investment in time in helping building up these channel partners and ecosystem. Okay, ecosystem, I'm using a very generic term, but it includes a lot of things. It includes a lot of people who would generate leads for your channel partners, help in closures, influencers, so on and so forth. Okay, and third thing is that there is a cost to it. Okay, there is a cost to doing all of this, and you have to invest in back-end infrastructure, IT. Okay, the biggest today, handling a residential rooftops customer is like handling a VIP customer. Okay, and particularly for Tatas with our brand name and everything, if we get it wrong, the damage to the brand reputation can be very, very high. But forget about the Tata thing. I think unless and until you have a strong IT embedded backend, you can't prosecute this business. The reason is that when you supply a residential system, you would need to have some kind of a customer app, okay, which allows the system, and that app should also be strong. It should anticipate the concerns which a customer has, say on generation, cost savings, whether the panel needs cleaning or not. Okay, you can have a very dumb system, say for example, say after a fixed number of hours, depending on this thing, there should be a light which should glow on the customer app every time he logs in, saying this panels need cleaning. Okay, and quite frankly, it's not a rocket science. Even your local house help can be trained to clean those panels, isn't it? And so all of that can be done. Our own view is that this market is going to grow in quantum leaps. Okay, but you need these three things. You need this infrastructure on the ground, you need the IT infrastructure, and this has to be facilitated through easy financing, almost like a subscription model. Shravan touched upon it, and that's what I meant, that there is very little innovation which is happening in this market. Okay, you almost, customers are saying that, yeah, just because you are giving a rooftop solar system, why should I invest in setting up a system or in buying a system? Okay, why can't you charge me the way you would charge the way Tata Sky charges? Maybe have a fixed monthly plan. These are the kind of innovations which this industry requires, so that the first cost of the system, okay, is not a barrier. Okay, the problem unfortunately is that you have these subsidy things which the states keep on running. Now Kerala is one of those few exceptions, other than Gujarat, which have very well run residential rooftop programs. I am afraid you cannot say the same about other states. Your mom and pop stores are coming, they are giving at prices which are close to the cost. Now, once that happens, uh, nobody factors in the cost of supporting those systems, monitoring those systems, the serving those systems, having the back end infrastructure. There is a cost. Shravan spoke about convincing the customers, but then where you are talking about, where you have, say, some very limited amount of margin in thousands, and your sales guy paying the customer 4 visits to close the deal, where is your money? It's gone, right? So there is a cost to everything. So I think all of this has to happen, but I'm afraid some of the states don't have well run programs. The problem is that while the customer can afford it, if a state has a subsidy program running, the customer wants that subsidy. But the problem is for established players like Tata Power, it is not possible to supply at that price, because we are making sure that we have the back-end infrastructure ready for customer satisfaction. So these are some of the barriers. So there are some states where we think it would grow. So I would say that, you know, the government has to take a pragmatic view. If they have to give a subsidy, they should give a subsidy on a price, and let the market decide let the consumer decide at what price he wants to pay to the supplier.
Okay.
So those are some of the kind of challenges, but we are gung-ho about the market. To cut a long story short, I think we are very gung-ho about it. Yeah.
Okay, no, understand that, Ravinder, and for good reason too. I just wanted to ask everybody on the panel, does anybody have any other views on the potential market size? Have you done any studies which say that
Vinay, you know, from our side at Enphase, you know, India for us is a extremely interesting market, right? Because it's also a bottom of the pyramid market. We have 1.3 billion people, right? And it's also an energy access market where more than 500 million people, for example, don't really have electricity, at least on a continuous basis, right? So we are actually looking at some innovative solutions there, which can have solar plus storage, small product, you know, which is portable product. So these are some things which we are looking at. We call that as OJAS, for example. It can also work off-grid, and it can support home loads. You can charge from the grid, you can connect to panels, you can connect to other AC modules outside. So those are innovative solutions which we are thinking, right? And this can be a pan-India product, for example. And from a market potential perspective, we've actually seen a lot of business potential in around 4 or 5 states. Okay, so I'm being brutally honest here. It's mainly been Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, a little bit of Kerala, where there is a lot of interest from a quality angle, and we've seen that quite a bit. And there are a few other states like Tamil Nadu which are upcoming, but the rest apart, I've not seen any, you know, progress at all in others. And there is a lot of interest, for example, like what Ravinder talked about, like balcony solar. One of the things is we are space constrained, right? Could we have like 2 panels on the balcony? And there are some innovative, you know, solutions we've seen where people have used, let's say 2 or 4 panels, and they have just attached a microinverter there, and that becomes your solar system. It's a very simple system, right? And that saves your electricity bill.
Sure. No, thank you, Harsha. So we're going to run a very quick poll on the webinar, but you know that can go on in parallel while we are still talking. So the next theme, I think most people are not very keen on kind of mentioning their own internal demand assessment numbers. So let's kind of change tack. The other major issue in this market has been, like we mentioned briefly, is what is the reliability and the quality of the system. And Ravinder mentioned also, I think in passing, that some of the prices that are being discovered in these empanelment tenders, they are actually quite low, and it is not very evident to the independent observers in the industry. How can these prices be justified? How can you execute a 1 kilowatt or a 2 kilowatt system at a price of 37,000 rupees a kilowatt? So, Madhulal J, I wanted to ask you, I mean, how the government has always taken the view that lowest price is the best. And I know that is the basic premise of all the tender schemes. But the consumer doesn't only want the lowest price, but he or she also wants a reliable system, a high quality system, a system that performs for 25 years and produces more power than other systems. Now, did you undertake any kind of exercise like this to ensure that you get a high quality product?
Yes, Vinay, that is one of the main concern of the consumers, the quality of the product. Before that, let me add one more point. The potential of the domestic rooftop solar. Actually, from our experience, our feeling is that majority of these consumers, domestic consumers, they are interested in installing a solar plant. But they are a little bit hesitant to invest for it. As I said earlier, we have shortlisted 42,000 consumers for our first phase. We have different three models. In the first two models, KCB is investing, and in the third model, the consumer is investing. And interestingly, this only less than 5,000 applicants choose the third model. That means the customer investing model. Others, they don't want to invest, but they are interested in installing a solar plant. Moreover, it is a social status also for Kerala.
So the point is, consumers don't want to invest, but KSEB is investing. How does KSEB ensure that you are getting the best in the class product? What kind of quality system process do you have?
Yes, that's another concern of the consumer. They are very much worried about the quality. So our tender conditions are very stringent. Then we are conducting that FAT, factory acceptance test for all the major components like solar panel, inverter, mounting structure, and the transformer if it is required. Then there is a site inspection is also there. After material delivery, our engineers, they will conduct the site inspection. Then only material will be finally accepted. Thereafter, during the inspection, during the commissioning of the plant, we have already deployed our project engineers and solar executives all over Kerala. And moreover, there are under each electrical section, there are 777 electrical section covering all over the Kerala, and each electrical section we have designated one person as the solar coordinator. And this team, the solar executives, solar project engineers, and solar coordinators, they will visit the sites during the installation, and then commissioning. After commissioning, we have a special testing team, and they will test the plant. Then only that will be commissioned. So we are giving a very top priority for the quality of the product, because KCB is the trusted entity in Kerala. We can run away. So since we are there, we are answerable. That we know very well. So our quality is ensured.
Okay. So let me pose this question to Baiju Ji and Suyog. Like you heard, one of the concerns has been that prices in these tenders are so low, and most of the bidders actually are not big companies like Tata Power. Most of the bidders are small local installers and contractors. As a financier, is quality important to you? How do you ensure that you back the right contractor and the right technologies, etc.?
Yeah, Vinay, we ensure that because the due diligence part of it, we look at the track record of the contractor. What are the projects they have executed so far? Look at their financials, whether they are good enough to execute.
Baiju Ji, we are talking about residential rooftop solar system. So
okay.
I'm not sure if you will have the due diligence time.
So no, residential, like I mentioned, will require a different model, isn't it? So there it will be the individual customer. That like we do for a car loan, it is only the CIBIL report that will be taken care of. Other than, and looking at the contractor part of it, the solar panel and all, we'll insist on MNRE standards. MNRE has specified standards for everything. I think the panel standards are there. The other systems also, inverter standards are there. So we'll insist that all such products comply with MNRE standards. That will be a precondition while sanctioning the loan.
Okay, Suyog.
Vinay, actually, our model is first we tie up with manufacturers, right, and then we empanel their tie-up dealers, right. So this is our model, and these dealer in turn pitch their product to customer, and then conversion happens through finance, right.
Understood.
And if you are talking about residential solar, where because I was aware that solar systems are costly, right? But now you told that it starts from 35,000, right? So we can add lot of value in that, right? Because as I told you that for us, we don't take any documents from the customer. It is only ID proof and address proof where we fund customers. So no documentations are required from us. Immediate approval is there for that customer, right? As I told you earlier, also we decision the case within 3 minutes. So I think one what we have to do is we will have to do lot of tie-ups, manufacturer tie-ups, right? Manufacturer should be ready to take the burden of interest rate, right? Because for us the proposition for customer is 0% finance, right? So we don't charge any interest from the customer. It is the manufacturer who has to bear the interest cost, right? So manufacturer should be ready to take that burden, right? And that is how we can take this industry numbers what we are expecting, and that is how
Okay.
we can build solar uh, systems in our houses.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So Ravinder and Shravan, both to both of you, is unscrupulous competition and low prices, could that be a market spoiler? I mean, is that a big concern for you?
So this is one thing which has happened over the last 1 year or so. The phase 2 scheme, residential scheme, subsidy scheme of Government of India has really opened up the market. So a lot of new installers have come in who are quoting pretty unviable prices. To my mind, it does not even cover the cost of components. And Madhulal Ji, as you mentioned, of course, Discom tries to do inspection, but there are many things which a Discom cannot inspect. For example, you look at the quality of structure. Is it 80 micron galvanized or 60 micron or 40 micron? You cannot say. You rely on a certificate. What is the quality of cabling which is inside the conduits? You don't know. What is the quality of the foundation, the cement mix in the foundation, right? So typically in a solar plant, you have 60-70% which are organized components, sir, in the cost. The remaining 30% are unorganized. Like, for example, you have these kind of structures and foundations and all that. So the quality of this can become and is becoming a major issue. And to my mind, government is not being very wise in devising a program like this, that they are totally opening up the sector to people who have absolutely no experience. You see, at the end of the day, a residential solar plant generates up to 400 volts DC on the roof of a customer. There's a very serious safety element involved. And you're just calling anybody who has no experience, quoting any price, getting any installation done, and expecting that there will be safety being adhered to. I think this is very problematic. Also, another thing we are facing now is that because of the DCR requirement, domestic content requirement in Srishti, which is the phase 2 scheme, we are being mandated to use, frankly, substandard solar panel. So we are being asked, so the market has moved on to mono panels of 380, 390 watt peak. Most of the new panels coming in are 430, 440 watt peak panels. But we are still being asked to give 330, 335 watt peak, that to cells from domestic manufacturers, which are more expensive. And that means that, and a typical panel from DCR panel is 3 to 4 rupees more expensive than a regular panel. So how do we do it at these prices? And this is this is definitely a very serious issue, and I think it has the potential to derail the entire subsidy program if it's not addressed with seriousness.
I second that. I second that, Vinay. I think
agree with that.
there is an industry risk here. I think more so in the last 6 to 8 months, where because of the China geopolitical situation, the DCR prices have gone up tremendously. And the DCR prices have come up. I fail to see how anybody can supply any kind of a decent system at that price. It's not going to happen.
So
That's why I alluded to that.
As a supplier,
Madhulalji, that
as a
is some
supplier of
feedback for you.
inverters, right?
Sorry.
Sorry,
Harsha, you were
Vinay.
saying.
I just had one comment. Yeah, I just had one comment. As a supplier of inverters and one of the key equipment, like the brain of the system, I completely agree what Shravan is saying. And one of the things we could do is we as Indians are really good at cloning things from outside, right? We know how to take the best of everyone and make our system really good. And I think we should do that here as well. And I think US, for example, has one of the best residential programs worldwide. And I think we are really good at that. And we should look at the National Electrical Code of the US and take those elements in, the safety elements. For example, rapid shutdown is a key concern, right? 400 volt DC. You need to have rapid shutdown, otherwise there could be safety hazard. So that was 2 cents from my side.
Sure.
Harsha, the challenge is not the regulations. Okay, the challenge in India is not the regulations.
It is the
I think if you look at it's the implementation and enforcement. Okay, in India, the challenge is not the regulation. Perhaps we have too much of these regulations. In fact, I think the challenge which is there is enforcement. Okay.
Okay.
That's
so
where.
We're just going to run. Sorry, Ravinder. We're just going to run the second poll. But meanwhile, I want to ask Madhulal Ji. So Madhulal Ji, there is this concern about quality of the system. You mentioned the various measures you are undertaking. That is absolutely appreciated, and we don't doubt that you are pulling out all stops to make sure that you get quality system installations. But still, the market is saying and repeatedly saying that these prices and the way the tender process is designed, that is not ideal for this market. And there is no way that you can get a good quality, reliable system at these kinds of prices. But the fact is that MNRE has come out with benchmark prices which are even lower than last year's. So how do you ensure quality in such an environment? And again, I would also ask Ravinder and Shravan to maybe give some advice to Madhulal Ji. I mean, how should the DISCOMs and the state governments be thinking about this?
Okay, Vinachi, actually in Kerala, our target is not to enhance our solar capacity, but to enhance our solar capacity with the quality products. Because being a utility, JCB is one of the unbundled utilities controlled by the government of Kerala, and we have got a good reputation as a electrical utility. Now we don't want to spoil our name by entering in the solar sector. So we are very adamant to keep the quality of the product. See, that's a fact. MNRE, they have this benchmark cost is very low. See, in our Kerala tender also, we have one of the speciality of our tender was it was reverse bidding. The bidder, they were able to quote below the benchmark cost of the MNRE rate. That ceiling was there. Even then, we have got sufficient response from the bidders, and we still hope that we can maintain the quality, because PR measurement also we are insisting. Only after measuring the performance ratio, the plant can be commissioned and bill can be processed. So we are still hopeful that we will get a quality product, and we expect support from this community, solar community.
Okay.
So one of the things, Vinay, just to add to that, sorry, I'm just cutting in, but one of the things which we used to have good in the sector previously, 2017-18, was that DISCOM or the nodal agency would discover a price, and that price would be used for calculation of subsidy. But they would not mandate that price as being the sale price in the market. So, for example, if 50,000 is discovered and 20% is the subsidy, IPGCL or Delhi government nodal agency, etc., would tell us that subsidy is limited to 10,000 rupees. Now, you please go and do business at whatever price works for you, but we will give subsidy only to 10,000 rupees. So, the larger public objective of ensuring transparency is there because the tender has been called. But you let us add value. So, for example, we want to offer Enphase inverters, we want to offer high quality panels, mono panels, etc., etc. So, with all of these things going on, it's not possible for us to and quality service and all of that. So, one of the suggestions which we have been telling MNRE for at least the last 6-8 months is please use your tender to the benchmark price for subsidy purposes, but please don't make it mandatory for actually doing the business, which makes it extremely difficult for us in the market, because we cannot offer that price and we cannot do business at all, because then we have to step back from that market altogether.
Okay, Ravinder, what would you advise MNRE, let's say, or DISCOMs when they're issuing new empanelment tenders?
No, I agree with what, see, first of all, I want to say what Mr. Madhulal is saying. What he's saying is absolutely correct. We are executing the residential program for KSEB. Okay, and we have worked in Kerala. Prior to that, we were working with Enert. Kerala is one state which has very, very rigid enforcement of the tender specifications, and it is followed to the T. I can say that. And I think they're doing a fantastic job. Okay, and I don't think so. What Mr. Madhulal said, that is actually being enforced on the ground. I'm a living testimony to that, if you want to believe it. Okay. Second thing, I also feel, and that's what I alluded to earlier also, that if MNRE has to do, they can use the L1 price only for the subsidy purposes, and let the market discover its own price, but the subsidy would be given at that price. That is the only way. Otherwise, what will actually happen is that it is actually this whole subsidy thing is becoming a barrier to the growth of the residential rooftop segment. Okay, because customers, if there is a subsidy available in a state, no matter how rich or poor the customer is, he would like to have that subsidy. Okay, and if you say that you cannot provide him with the subsidy, then it's a bit of a challenge. Okay, and so I think that is probably what Shravan is suggesting is a pragmatic way, and I think that is what can give a fillip to the market. Okay, otherwise then the government should get out of the subsidy game, very frankly. That's the other option.
Okay. I think the government will possibly be quite happy to hear that, particularly in this fiscal environment. So, we got many questions on cost and viability of residential rooftop solar systems, which I think we have covered. But the other kind of bracket of questions we are getting is about storage. To what extent is storage being deployed in residential rooftop solar systems, and is that still the lead acid batteries, or there is kind of lithium ion beginning to make inroads into the market? Open to all of you. I mean, anybody who wants to answer that.
You want me to take that, Vinay?
Sure, Harsha. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a very brief statement, and others can make statements as well, I think. So what I have seen is lead acid battery versus lithium ion is purely cost versus quality. Do I want a cheap one, or do I want the system to work for 10 years?
So Harsha, that is the concept. I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. But what is the market? What is the consumer asking for and getting today?
See the market today, very frankly, the market is not very clear because consumers are not clear. At the end of the day, the clarity comes only when you have the knowledge, and the knowledge is not there today. And with that, I don't see a knowledgeable consumer base. There are those premium players, for example, premium apartment complexes, premium villa residences, and so on and so forth. They're very knowledgeable. They do want a full storage lithium solution and so on. But that apart, I don't see the market really knowledgeable so that the space can open up. I think it'll still be a couple of years, if you ask me, frankly.
Okay.
So in our experience,
yes.
Yeah. So in our experience, see, in tier 1 cities, we are not seeing demand for battery operated systems. In tier 2 cities, we find a requirement for 2 to 3 hours of battery backup. And one of the important tenets of residential solar as a business is that you cannot talk 10-year paybacks or 12-year paybacks. If a system doesn't make sense in 2 or 3 years, it's not going to sell in the market because customers are very simple. They want a very fast payback period and all of that. Nobody's thinking 10 years. So we have seen the maximum demand is for lead acid, not for lithium ion. Lithium ion, maybe when the pricing works out better, maybe it will improve. And most importantly, we are still not recommending hybrid systems to our customers. What we are telling our customers is please go where you have, say, summer power cuts of, let's say, 1 hour or 2 hours. We are recommending to customers to go with a regular on-grid system and have a battery backup on the side, like a regular luminous battery backup or from one of the other battery backup companies. So the solar is not charging the batteries, but there is a solar in the house and there is a battery in the house, and both of these are operating in the same ecosystem. That's pretty much the kind of product that's selling in the market today. That's our experience.
Sure. Thank you, Shravan. Ravinder, any take on
prospects
for storage?
Our view is that if you have to get into the residential domain, you have to offer the full bouquet of offerings. Okay. Today, the biggest challenge in most of the states is the net metering. Okay. There are few exceptions. You can do everything right for a residential customer, and yet at the end of the day, there can be a huge degree of customer dissatisfaction just because net metering did not happen in time. So one of the ways to offset the disadvantages of or the long lead time of net metering is to offer a hybrid system. Okay, there are also tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So what we say is we have an off-grid system which we call as an economy product. Okay, we also have the hybrid system which we call as a premium product. In tier 1 cities, you would need hybrid systems, and I think we see a fair amount of traction there. So we have actually developed a line for that. Currently, we are offering those for precisely the reasons which Shravan said, because of the high cost of lithium-ion batteries. We are currently offering those systems with lead-acid batteries, but we do give the customers the option of the lithium-ion batteries also. And then you also have the off-grid systems. Okay. So off-grid systems definitely in rural India, in the hinterland, are being offered with lead-acid batteries. The hybrid systems in urban India, more so in cities like Bombay, where space is a constraint, we are offering hybrid systems, particularly for the balcony kind of solutions. Okay, where you have actually 2 panels. So these are typically less than 1 kilowatt systems, less than 3 kilowatt systems. So it's enough to have say 2 fans and 2 lights. So yes, the market. If you want to succeed in the residential segment market, you cannot offer only one plain on-grid system. That's not going to work. So as a part of our focus on the residential segment, we are offering all of that. Yes.
Okay. And what percentage of the systems are sold with storage? Very roughly.
Again, I will not get into the numbers game. Okay. But in terms of percentage, the market is small at this point of time. But if you look at the sales of what Luminous and others are doing, the market potential is huge. See, the difference between the Luminous system is the solar system only charges their batteries. It does not directly feed the load. So those systems are much cheaper than the ones which we offer. Okay. But if you take that as a surrogate measure, Vinay, you are a market research company, you know what the size of that market is. It's huge. Okay. And that we feel is actually the latent potential. And so if Mr. Baiju and Suyog help us, I think we have to do, because see, when the moment you start offering a hybrid or an off-grid, it's not a matter of economics. It's a matter of sheer availability of power creates value. Okay, so it's a peace of mind concept which you would then position it to the customer. You will not say, so rather than every household has an inverter, all of us who stay in Delhi or any other city have an inverter. So instead of that inverter, you put that hybrid system. No? And it's a smart system. It will decide what time to feed the load, what time to charge the battery, what time to do all of this. And you need to bundle this with other solutions. You need to bundle it with energy efficiency solutions. So there are a number of ways you can go about doing it. But yes, we also feel that the hybrid systems are the future.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree with I agree with Mr. Ravinder completely. So I think that's the direction everyone is going, where you have like solar storage, load control, everything managed over your smartphone, for example, offering advantages to the user. So I think that's the way it'll go, but I don't think we are there yet.
This is how most of these mom and pop stores would then get edged out. So as market leaders, as large organizations, we have to offer these kind of solutions. Otherwise, we can't play the price game with these guys. We can't.
Okay, let me add one point.
Running out of time, but I've got one quick question which I still want to ask. Very briefly, if 2 or 3 of you can answer this. Is there any other innovation going on in the marketplace, either by way of some DIY kits, other standard kits, or anything else? I mean, you talked about balcony systems, storage, but is there any other technical innovation which is going on in this market?
Maybe I'll give a couple of points here. So, one of the things like, some of the panelists commented is you need a system which can work with grid, without grid, a hybrid type of a product. That's something which can revolutionize, solar in India. That's something which we are currently working on. You can go and search for Ensemble, ENSEMBLE Ensemble, which is something we launched in the US recently. So next year that will come over to India. That could be a really big thing. And the other thing is India needs solutions, small solutions, which is storage, solar, everything combined. So these are things where, with grid or without grid, fully off-grid systems. So those I think are some innovations which can come in. And, I think those will really be good for India from a longer term perspective.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other innovations?
Yeah, so in terms of technology innovation, obviously we would look forward to companies like Enphase to bring them on board. But what we have been working on for the past year or so is the cycle time of an installation, because that can change the entire value proposition for the client. So what we are doing right now is that in terms of structures, we have arrived at some sort of standard, given our hundreds of installations across the country. We have arrived at a certain standard structure kind of formulation, which can serve at least 80 to 90% of the roofs. Now that's a very difficult thing to do in India because every roof is different, like the US. So we are actually working on a system whereby we can do an end-to-end installation in a week, except for net metering, of course, which is in the utilities' hands. We can get the order in from advanced till full implementation within 1 week, which is something which we can do even in custom rooms with elevated structures and things like that. So that is something which we are trying to bring so that the customer has a much more enjoyable experience.
Okay. I think we are out of time, so we're going to close the webinar now. It was a very enriching and enlightening discussion, so thank you all very much for your time. If I can just quickly summarize before I pass on to Sangeeta for closing. I think one, very clearly, there is a huge market potential, and we are basically beginning to take the early steps to realizing that potential. I think states like Kerala and Gujarat are taking the lead, and it's very heartening to see some new business models coming out. Equally, there is many technology options, and the consumer's point of view, the financing models are beginning to improve. The route to market is becoming easier. And I do believe and I hope that Baiju ji and Suyog will take some of these discussion points away and come out with new products, either improving the speed of execution or the simplicity of the financing products, etc., which will really help in accelerating the growth of this market. So with that, I will pass over to my colleague Sangeeta, and thank you very much for your time. Sangeeta, over to you.
Thank you, Vinay, and thank you, panelists, for setting time aside today for our webinar, and thank you very much for your useful insights. Once again, I'd like to mention a special word of thanks to our sponsors, TATA Power, and our strategic partners, the Indo-German Energy Forum, for supporting our endeavors in making quality content accessible to all. And finally, thank you, audience, for being a part of this webinar today. We will be sharing the recording of today's session to your registered email account, and it will also be available on our website. Our next webinar is on module technology landscape. It will be held in the last week of November. And until then, it's goodbye from all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.